And we're ready whenever you are, sir.
All right, good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's city council meeting. For those who are attending remotely, the camera and council chambers are set up to show those attending in person tonight. However, we're having some technical difficulties with the showing part of it. There should be sound, and we're working on that. So hopefully, very soon we've got the show aspect fixed. When it does come on, there'll be a raise hand feature, and you will notice a picture of a hand in the upper right-hand corner. When we reach that point in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to address council, you can click that button to be given your opportunity to address council. For now, would everybody please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Tulley, Councilor Silly,
Here.
Councilor Powers,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly,
Here.
Councilor Stevenson, here, Councilor Trim, here, Councilor Weaver,
Here.
quorum present.
Mayor Tulley has to be excused tonight, of course. He has some family business and it's all good, but is there a consent of council?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. The agenda was amended earlier today to include an additional presentation, which was originally under old business. Does everybody agree to do that? And okay,
Yes.
We're gonna have three presentations then this evening, and we will begin the presentation for an update regarding the bypass valve installation at the wastewater treatment plant. I know, I'm sure council members as well as myself have gotten many calls and complaints about the terrible odor going on in the city. So well, let's try and keep the citizens updated and hopefully as educated as we are. It seems to be a day by day changing occurrence here as we address this issue, and we apologize for that. So let's begin with that presentation.
Sure. Just to give a heads up, the bypass valve was installed and began operation last Wednesday. So that part of it is good news. The not so good news is the continued odor challenge coming from the wastewater treatment plant. So we've asked our partners from the Development Authority to come in and provide a briefing on that. So I'd like to introduce Christian Fout, who will give a short presentation and be here to answer your questions.
Excellent, thank you.
Good evening, everybody. As the city manager did say, that bypass valve for the CSO tank was installed last week. It's something we've been working on for quite a while to get through the funding agencies and get a contractor out there to actually bypass the CSO tank. I will remind everybody that that CSO tank is only bypassed in dry weather. That CSO tank has to be utilized in wet weather events. It's been quite dry lately. That bypass valve is active, is functioning. It's in place now. City manager had asked me to come down and give a little bit more explanation about some of the other potential issues and things that's going on with the plant overall. Prepared this quick presentation to kind of give a brief process overview. Sorry, Kathy, go ahead.
Sure.
Just talk about a few different things here. I think it's important for everybody. I think many of council have been down and visited the plant and understand some of the complexities and some of the numerous processes and things that are going on down there on a day-to-day basis. But I just put together this brief presentation just to kind of talk about some of those processes in general, talk about some of the variables that can affect those processes, and then discuss a little bit of the treatment issues that we are experiencing currently. Many of you may know your facility is a 4A rated facility. That means this is the most complex rating you can have in New York State. The DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, creates these ratings based on not just processes in place and the volume of flow, but the complexity of the plant and how many different processes and different things you have going on all at once. 4A is the highest rating you can have, very similar to many other large facilities around the state. But this is the largest rating you can have here. You have one here in Ogdensburg. That is That last bullet there kind of touches on some of the reasons why. There are multiple different stages of treatment you can have in a wastewater treatment plant. Augsburg has virtually all of them. You have those 5 listed at the bottom there being preliminary, primary, secondary, solids handling, and then disinfection. The 5 major stages you have in there. We can just quickly go over each one of those. You have preliminary treatment, which is the very first step at the wastewater plant. This happens right at the front of the plant. It's the first step where raw wastewater coming in from the city goes into. This is basically bar screening and grit removal. Bar screening, removing plastics, trash, debris, other large debris that you can grab right up front at the front of the plant. And then a grit removal chamber, which there's a picture of your existing tank chamber, just a little over 5,000 gallon tank, basically meant to capture grit, which is a generic term for sand, gravel, rocks, anything else that will settle out right away. That's your preliminary treatment system. Flow then processes, goes through that preliminary treatment and enters into your primary treatment process. Your primary treatment are 2 large 260,000 gallon primary clarifier tanks. In wastewater, everything's about separating solids and liquids. These are settling tanks. These are meant for solids to settle to the bottom, clear water to come to the top, and then go on to the next process. These are conical shaped tanks, so they're sloped towards the middle. All the solids settle in the middle. There's mechanical devices inside of here that are scraping these solids towards the middle of this tank, and then there are mechanical pumps that are running depending on different set points and different variety of reasons within the plant that are pumping those solids out of these tanks and onto the next process. After you go through those first 2 changes, this is the secondary treatment. These are your aeration tanks. These are 2 very large tanks, just over 550,000 gallons each. There's 2 of them, so you have just over 1 million gallons of aerated activated sludge. This is also called mixed liquor. This is a biological process. There's cultured bacteria within these tanks that's actually digesting and eating remaining solids within the waste stream. You've already gone through clarification. Your solids are settling. Anything that's remaining is still in the wastewater, which would either be suspended or dissolved solids in the liquid. They go into this tank, and these tanks actually help remove some of those solids, move them on to the next process where they become settable solids in the next tank, which is your secondary treatment process. Basically, 2 just under 400,000 gallon tanks. So we have several million gallons worth of process tanks on site at any given time. These are settling tanks. Your solids settle at the bottom, clear water rises at the top, and actually goes to your disinfection system. Hit that next slide. City of Augsburg actually has multiple disinfection systems, which is a little bit abnormal. Wastewater plants generally have one or the other. Augsburg actually has the ability to disinfect via UV or via chlorine. And that is directly related to the city's CSO issue. The volume of flow that can come into the plant at any given time and overwhelm the plant, you actually have multiple disinfection methods for that reason. All the solids that are collected between primary clarifiers or secondary clarifiers, they all have to again get disposed of. They then go to this tank here. It's about a 70,000 gallon tank where they're allowed to thicken further. They settle to the bottom. Conical shaped tank, again, there's pumps in the bottom of this. Pump those solids out and move them through your anaerobic digesters. Another biological process you have at the plant, this is cultured bacteria within these sealed vessels. One of your tanks is 140,000, other one's just over 230,000. Again, these are sealed units. These are anaerobic, lack of oxygen within them. There's bacteria within these tanks that is, again, further breaking down the solids that have been collected throughout the rest of the plant. Breaking these solids down, producing methane gas. The city actually has a methane gas capture system. We actually capture that methane gas and are able to burn it on site through one of our boilers, dual fuel boilers. Multiple tanks here. There's 3 tanks, 2 primary digesters and a secondary digester. Multiple levels of digestion as well as treatment happening within these tanks. These are heated and mixed year round. Primary digesters are kept at 102, 103 degrees year round.
Christian, can I just ask you?
Yep.
Quick interrupt. Is our methane gas burner working right now?
It is functional, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I know when I looked for a while back, it wasn't yet. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ultimately, finally, the solids that are handled through your digesters have to get dewatered. You have a pretty complex dewatering system. It's called the centrifuge. Relatively new technology, certainly in the North Country. There's not a lot of these around. But by centrifugal force, polymer, coagulant, chemicals added to the remaining sludge that has gone through all those other processes, your clarifiers, your thickeners, your primary digesters, secondary digesters, and ultimately comes to this process here where chemical is added at the right ratio. It turns that liquid sludge into solid sludge into a dumpster off the landfill. That's the final end of your solids end of all the collected solids end up going through this centrifuge. A lot going on. A very quick overview there. Each one of those processes, there's multiple pumps, multiple set points, multiple variables that can affect each one of them individually. They all treat us. Treatment plants are much like a living organism. It's not in and out, one side, out the other, that simple. Much like the human body, very susceptible to various parameters, some of which we are listing right there. Seasonal changes in weather, temperature swings can very adversely affect the bacteria that's within this wastewater treatment plant. The volume of the wastewater coming in for sure has a big play and big role on this. What's in the flow, the strength of the flow, the parameters within that flow, temperature again, health of everything within the plant happening. pH obviously plays a big role in anything biological. Any of those things start to get out of whack or get to change, there's a lot of operational changes happening on a daily basis, hourly basis. Seasonal things are happening right now. That's a big thing. When you're having 60-something degrees in the morning and 30 degrees at night, 34-degree swings are a challenge to ensure all your biological processes are maintained and staying healthy. Much like the human body, most of these things become much more dormant when it's cold out. They're not quite as active. Temperature has a big effect on things that are happening in the plant. Not a perfect science, as the bullet says right there. Obviously, constantly diagnosing issues, prescribing solutions. Not often a simple formula, just fix it. It's not just 1 + 1 is 2. Those variables are constantly changing, so it's something we're monitoring constantly and are always trying to optimize what's happening. That is the actual process view of Augsburg wastewater plant. Small picture there. A lot going on. That is actually all the processes right through the plant from the front until it hits the river on the bottom. Some of the current treatment plant challenges we're having, just poor settling and secondary settling tanks. So these are the final settling tanks that are at the back end of the plant after it's gone through several other processes, gone through the aeration tanks. We've been having poor settling for a little bit of period of time here. One option to correct that is to add a chemical coagulant to the sludge in that tank to get it to settle out better. Industry standard before you do any of this type of stuff is perform some jar testing, which is what you see there on the bottom. Which is basically they take some of your sludge, they put it through multiple different vials, add different ratios of the chemical you want to use to it, see which one reacts with it the best and gives you the result you need. It works, it's doable. You see right there from the pictures that you get much better results with the ratio on the right hand side there. That works great for the sludge that you collected in that time period. This is just a snapshot in time, like that sludge is exactly what it is right now, and that chemical component worked well and worked for several week period. Use any of these chemicals in a wastewater treatment plant, the DEC requires you to fill out a water treatment chemical form, which requires you to notify how much you're going to use of it. And there's actually some chemical formulas that determine how much of it is that safe usage to be able to remain in the water that may actually leave the plant and go to the river. In this particular process, this is actually an internal process. This isn't on the effluent. This is actually on the back end of the plant. So much of this is actually staying inside of the plant, this chemical that's in the water. Ultimately, meeting with some vendors, we determined we're going to attempt to use the polymer to get the sludge to settle in secondary settling tanks. Started to work for a period of time, but ultimately it wasn't the right mixture and it wasn't the right ratio. and actually had a negative effect on the sludge that's in those large aeration tanks, those 550,000 gallon tanks. That opposite reaction that we actually wanted turned them into a anoxic type of sludge, which we now are dealing with to get rid of this anoxic sludge. What happened immediately? Chemical addition was halted. As Councilor just mentioned, the remnants of some of that chemical actually remain in the facility. It actually kind of embeds itself into much of the sludge throughout the facility. And ultimately, it takes a little bit of time to get that sludge out of the facility. The wastewater treatment plant there, the centrifuge, as I mentioned, which is actually a very high-tech piece of equipment. It can actually dewater sludge at a much higher rate than anything we've had there previously. In order to get this sludge, this anoxic sludge out of the facility that we don't want, is unhealthy biologically, we have to dewater it. We are dewatering it as fast as we can all day long. The guys have even been working late into the evenings, and then they've been working on the weekends to get this sludge out of the facility. Something that just takes a little bit of time to do, and then it takes a little bit of time for the biology in those aeration tanks to come back around, get back to a healthy state where they are treating wastewater the way that they are supposed to be. Continuing to work with the vendor, Slack Chemical is listed there, try to find a better solution, a better combination of chemicals that would have the reaction that we would want it to. None of that's happening at this point. Now we're just focusing on getting the plant back to being as healthy as it can be. Long term, pretty much this process optimization steps on the side here. This is something that happens on a daily basis and is constantly happening. You're looking for your goals. You're introducing this. So you introduce your changes, you measure the impact, reflect on the results, you detect the problem. This is just a circular event that happens at any wastewater treatment plant. Detect the problem, try to figure out what it is, introduce a change, monitor for a time period. Wastewater plants are very susceptible to large dramatic changes. You don't want to do that anywhere. Small, mediocre changes over time, and then you monitor. Continue to see if you are actually meeting the goals you're trying to get to. This whole plant and process has really only been in operation now for about 1 full year. At this point, we're still learning a bit about some of the processes there and how they're going to react seasonally, temperatures, various flows, various parameters that we talked about earlier. Again, we haven't even gone through 1 whole season or 1 whole calendar year yet with these processes in place. So there's a little bit of a learning curve there, and there is operational issues that you just run into that are going to happen. It's impossible to say that you're never going to have any issues or any upsets at a wastewater treatment plant. That's just, it's not the reality of it. Try to learn from the ones that you do have, make sure they don't happen again. Continue to try to optimize all the processes. A lot of biological treatment and a lot of other types of treatment as well going on, chemistry and biology involved in this process. So.
Great.
Yep.
Any questions from council?
If my memory serves me correctly, we had a similar problem back in the early 2000s, 2010, somewhere in that range. I believe it was attributed to the cheese plant here, and they did find a way to solve it. And I talked to the city manager about trying to look something that up. Are there any records or anything that might lead you to discover how that method was solved before?
I think we would have to know exactly what issue they were actually having and solving, because there could be multiple different ones, but
I don't know what the issue was, but the odor was very similar to what's going on today. And it's lasted pretty much all summer. And lastly, do we have some type of time frame when we're going to get this solved?
so we are certainly working at this as fast as we can. I am apprehensive to tell you, yes, this is going to be solved in X amount of days, X amount of whatever. It's a bit of an unknown. There still, things are recovering. They are coming back around. Very bad timing this time of year with the temperature changes, which seem very cold at night. These are biological activity. Cold temperatures are a problem right now. So I tell you that we're working feverishly at it, and we're continuing to do that.
Can you reassure the people who are being affected that some progress is actually being made?
Absolutely. As I just mentioned, the biggest thing is to get this septic, this anoxic sludge out of the facility. It's in the facility, and it's in a large quantity in the facility. How we're doing that is dewatering. We are taking the sludge, dewatering it, sending it to the landfill at a very higher than we have ever done at this facility, for sure. I can guarantee you that. So
So-
dumpster after dumpster, so.
Thank you.
So Christian, we're having two separate issues, right? One was with the holding tank that has the bypass valve that we're dealing with now, that was creating this odors all summer long for residents along Washington Street. And now we are having a separate issue that involves the sludge and the sediment with the chemical reaction. Is that?
That is correct. Pretty much back to back here. The CSO tank issue has been going on all summer. That one was a little bit more driven by getting the funding, getting the approval of the regulatory agencies throughout the summer. Very unfortunate, nothing on our end that we could do about that one. That one was being held up on that side of it. Yes, that was what was dealing with mostly during the summer. This other issue we're having now is really just since last Tuesday. So we're still at the last 10 days.
And I've had a lot of questions from citizens that they believe that the impact of the waste coming from Hubleton has caused this. Would you please address that?
It's certainly a variable. I think there are a lot of variables of what can happen in a wastewater treatment plant for this particular upset that we're seeing right now. There are numerous variables. I wouldn't directly relate it to any of them. It's not that unheard of or uncommon to have an upset in a wastewater plant. Nothing dramatically changed last Tuesday other than this chemical addition we're trying to add to it. That is the root cause of what we were doing right here.
So I guess the question would be, so I could be clear with it, would we still be having this issue, the second issue right now, if we were not getting the waste from Hubleton?
I can't say that. I wouldn't be able to tell you what other controlling factor there is to this other than the chemical addition that we have added to it.
So we're not sure then the chemical is the only issue.
I am positive that the chemical is the issue that caused this sludge to go septic. Yes.
In the breakdown of the combining of the solids through the multiple cycles from the secondary treatment to the third treatment, that's kind of where the issue is, and now you're extracting it in large amounts.
Correct.
Right. To go back to Storm's comment earlier, I believe, Dan, and you might remember, obviously that wastewater treatment plant in 2010 was
20 years ago.
Totally
it was, well, yeah, and it was in dire need of replacement then. And I believe they might have put in a bubble diffuser or something to that effect. It was kind of a Band-Aid fix in the grand scheme of things, if I remember correctly, just to keep it up and operational. I was on the council at the time, and we didn't have much of a choice but to go that route. So, but back, from what I understand, and that's just for historical purposes, but going forward here, one of the business owners down in that area had made mention that it wasn't as strong in the last couple of days. So it's comforting to see that you might be getting a handle on it and recognizing that it's a brand new plant and it's quite a complex plant, as you very quickly pointed out, that hopefully we can get this, you can get this and your team can get this under control, and I have confidence that you will.
Okay, any other comments? I don't have any either. Thank you very much. Hopefully we get this matter under control. Thank you. All right, we have two more presentations tonight. Let's do something very unorthodox here. If you, thanks. I see I have support already. In the middle of this, can I have consent of council to revise the agenda and do our proclamation? Because I know that Friends of the Library are very important to us and they have some things going on this evening that they need to get to. And can we just do this?
Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
And then we'll jump back into presentations. I have consent of council.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so this is Friends of the Library are here with us tonight. If you'd like to join us, you can. And I'm going to make a proclamation. Thank you. That's all right.
Thank you for all you do. Oh, thank you.
Very appreciated. All right, I'm going to make this proclamation for the Friends of the Library. Whereas the Friends of the Augsburg Public Library raise money that enables our library to move from good to great, providing the resources for additional programming, much needed equipment, support for children's summer reading, and special events throughout the year. Whereas the work of the Friends highlight on an ongoing basis the fact that our library is the cornerstone of the community, providing opportunities for all to engage in the joy of lifelong learning and connect with the thoughts and ideas of others from ages past to present. Whereas the Friends understand the critical importance of well-funded libraries and advocate to ensure that our library gets the resources it needs to provide a wide variety of services to all ages, including access to print and electronic materials, along with expert assistance in research, readers' advisories, and children's services. And whereas the Friends, the gift of their time and commitment to the library sets an example for all in how volunteerism leads to positive civic engagement and the betterment of our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Deputy Mayor Daniel E. Scamperly, proclaim October 20th through October 26th, 2024, as Friends of the Library Week in Augsburg, and urge everyone to join the Friends of the Library and thank them for all they do to make our library and community so much better. So we thank you very much. Fix my seal there. Excellent. Thank you very much. And your work is much appreciated. I used your library a lot when I was in high school and college, and once in a while I attend some events there. Yes, I do. And I get a lot of feed from the community who like to take the kids there. So thank you very much.
So you have to put the children's library to awesome.
So if you're looking for something to do for your kids, visit the library or check out their schedule. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. I'll give these to Kathy and then she'll
Okay.
give one to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I was getting anxious getting out the door.
I know. When I'm looking at the clock, I know I'm gonna be back to business. All right. We have another presentation this evening from North Star Health Alliance. Thank you, Ken. Enjoy your night, Tom. Ready when you are.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody giving me the opportunity to come address the council to go over some of the highlights of our ambulance proposal to the community here. So, go ahead. So who is North Star Health Alliance? For those of you that don't, never heard that term here in Ogdensburg, it's a collaborative effort of healthcare between Claxton Hepburn Medical Center, Carthage Area Hospital.
Sorry, can I get your name?
Sure, Dominic Doldo, D-O-M-I-N-I-C, D-O-L-D-O.
Saw you on the news tonight.
Scott Berto?
Yep.
Thank you.
So the North Star Health Alliance is a collaboration of Claxton Hepburn Medical Center, Carthage Area Hospital, North Country Orthopedic Group, and Meadowbrook Care, which is our assisted living facility in Carthage, New York. And realistically, our commitment for the ambulance service is really to provide a dedicated ambulance service to increase the access to patient care to a higher level of service. Slide, please. So our sole purpose and intent of this is to provide interfacility transfers from Carthage Area Hospital and Claxton Hepburn Medical Center. We're also planning to include North Country Orthopedic Group, Meadowbrook Terrace, and our rural health clinics, which include some of our school-based clinics. Because when you apply for a certificate of need with the health department for ambulance service, it doesn't differentiate whether you want to do 911 calls or whether you want to do interfacility transfers. So what our intention is to do is to geographically restrict ourselves by listing our primary operating areas as our facilities, like we said there, which include both hospitals, our rural health clinics, and our school-based clinics. And what that means is that we cannot expand outside of those areas and provide ambulance services unless we're requested through the countywide mutual aid plan. So there's not any real hostile takeover of EMS in any county by geographically restricting ourselves for that. Really what we're looking to do is provide higher level interfacility transfers where we can use nurses, doctors, physicians if we need it. And really we're trying to reduce the wait times that we have. Next slide, please. Our strategy is to put one ambulance at each hospital, one at Claxton and one at Carthage. And then we plan to have one ambulance in reserve for downtimes like maintenance or when we have high levels of patients that need to be moved around. What that will do is rapidly reduce our response times. The ambulances will be at the facilities waiting should a patient need transport. With an extra ambulance and some pool of per diem staff, we hope that when our vehicles are down for maintenance, we'll be in service 100% of the time. And if we get an influx of patients that need to be moved, we have a per diem pool of candidates that we can call and hopefully staff that ambulance if we need to. What's the impact of the community? Because this is probably where we're getting the most questions about. And realistically, our plan that we're putting in place with one ambulance at each location is not enough to meet our need at both facilities. And that was somewhat strategic because we knew that the local rescue squads and fire departments that provide interfacility transports from our facilities to Syracuse, Utica, Albany do rely on some of that source of income to fund their operation. So we still will have to rely on those agencies to assist us with transports because one ambulance is not enough at each location to do 100% of our transports. So they will still get some of the business from both of our facilities. Mutual aid participation, obviously, we're going to be a good neighbor, and if the need arises that the ambulance services in any area are overwhelmed and we're not on a transport, our ambulances would be able to provide emergency care to anybody in the community that might need it. So with that, obviously, should there be some kind of large scale disaster emergency, I think we are a force multiplier. Obviously, there's no financial burden on the city or any municipality. We're not requesting any public funding from any sources for that. And our intention really is to work with the local rescue squads and fire departments to provide this service on a long-term strategic plan. All right, staffing and employment opportunities. And I think this is probably one of the areas that maybe the way I was quoted previously may have raised some concerns. Yes, we are looking to hire 15 paramedics and 15 EMTs, but we're not looking to hire 15 paramedics and 15 EMTs here in Ogdensburg, and we're not looking to hire them all full-time. What we're looking to do is hire 4 full-time paramedics and 4 full-time EMTs at each location, and then have a strong pool of per diem and part-time employees at both locations. And that's very similar to the way some of the volunteer rescue squads and fire departments work. They have employees that work at multiple organizations and strategize their time. We're also not looking to restrict any outside employment of anybody that we hire, meaning that they're welcome to work at the rescue squad or fire department or municipal, anywhere they want to work. The only thing we're going to ask, obviously, just based on the needs of our services, that they wouldn't work in between our shifts. For example, if they work 7 in the morning till 7 at night, we wouldn't ask them to work a nighttime shift at 7 p.m. or 7 in the morning, then come back to work tired. But on their days off, surely they could, seek outside employment anywhere else, which will help the other fire departments and rescue squads. We've also strategically thought of a pathway to healthcare. Being a hospital-based organization, we already have programs where people can come from certified nursing assistant through LPN up to RN, nurse practitioner, or any one of those programs. And we see that our EMS program working the same way. We have a number of current employees, what I call wage grade or entry level positions that are, have already approached us to, take that step into the healthcare field with an entry level EMT job, that we could sponsor them to go through the course and pay part of their time to go. So we think that this will bolster the entry level ranks into the EMS system. It takes a while to grow a paramedic. There's no secret to that, right? It's a long-term program. I know Clarkson's got a new program that has a 4 months intense classroom, followed by 4.5 months of intense clinical. So it takes us a little bit of time to grow some paramedics, but we hope that the more basic EMTs we can instill into the EMS system, that the more people will have some career opportunities to move up and in gainful employment and would seek that path to move on to paramedics. So.
The other thing that's brought too is you said allowing them to work other shifts. Other people in the EMS field work for multiple agencies, so if we're training them internally, we're new EMTs in our system, allow them the opportunity to work locally into the
Right. And I think also that just emergency services as a whole, there's a special person it takes to provide, EMS, and not everybody's going to want to come work at the hospital, right? We're going to be only doing interfacility transfer. There's a lot of people that have that adrenaline that like to do the emergency 911 calls. And there's some people that right now don't work in the transport business. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people to stay with those organizations because they just don't want to do the nature of the transports that we're going to be doing. So. Next slide. So this is where the public need comes in. In the last couple of years, not only has the number of transports increased at both Carthage and at Claxton Hepburn, but the demand on the local providers have increased, causing an increase in wait times at both facilities. Right now, based on our data, the current wait time at Claxton is about 3 hours and 45 minutes, and at Carthage is about 3 hours and 8 minutes. And that's the time from where we code our system to say that this patient's going to be transported. We start looking to line up the transport till the time they're actually discharged and removed from the facility with the rescue squads. The scarier part is the extreme outliers. And the longest outlier is over 30 hours long, meaning that people are having to wait the whole course of a weekend till the next business day on Monday to be transported to a medical facility for a procedure that they need. And there's some other ones that are, 8, 6, 10 hours through those outliers there. By having our own ambulances, that will dramatically reduce those long waits and ultimately increase the outcomes for those patients that have critical medical issues. So that's really the plan. Slide, please. How do we manage this? So the first thing we have at Claxton Hepburn is an operations center, which is fairly new to the hospital. It encompasses our case management along with our nursing supervisors. Our intent is to use this operations center as our designated dispatch center for the hospital. And by integrating them with our nursing supervisors and integrating them with our case management, we have a big picture at a system level of where our patients are, where they need to go, and also are patients that may have already been down at these other facilities that need to come back. So we're trying to be efficient with that. So obviously, we're going to do like anybody else would do and try and track these metrics to see, how our system progresses and what we're doing to these wait times. So, next slide, please. So like I said, just realistically, we're not looking for a hostile takeover of EMS in any county. We're really hoping to enhance the EMS system in Jefferson, Lewis, and St. Lawrence County. We are looking forward to partnering with the local fire departments and rescue squads to service the needs of both the hospital and the patients. And I think together, it's going to be a better system for everybody. So that's really all I had. I was just kind of hoping to give you a brief overview and give you guys a chance to ask some questions.
I appreciate that.
Through the need process or it's just that is there a need for better patient care and service.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
I have a few questions.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I have had the experience and I have heard from staff and from various people in the community that our emergency room department is very difficult to staff. And that is some of the causes of some of the transport issues, that sometimes the ambulances are waiting and they don't have the staff to discharge them to the ambulances. And I know I personally experienced that with a family member. So what plans do you have, because staffing is so difficult in the medical field right now across the board, besides growing your EMTs, your EMS, what is your plan for staffing? And how will that help with the emergency room itself? Because that seems to be part of the loggerhead you have.
Well, I mean, that's the one nice thing, that being a hospital-based ambulance service that we can do. That also puts a couple more people to assist in the emergency room. Obviously, there's some union-related issues that we have to overcome with the Nurses Association to allow our paramedics and EM teams to work in the ambulance or in the emergency room. But in a lot of hospitals in metropolitan areas that have hospital-based ambulance systems, instead of the EMTs and paramedics sitting in the ambulance waiting for the 911 pager to go off, they're assisting in the ER with vital signs and x-ray, transporting patients over to radiology, starting IVs, and doing those patient care things that hopefully will make our emergency departments more efficient and cut down on those delays. So that's one thing. Obviously, healthcare staffing is difficult everywhere. We have a whole team of healthcare recruiters that are trying to recruit, more people to these facilities to do that. And then, we even have a group of traveling nurses that, when we can't staff appropriately, we supplement with the traveling nurses. So, but staffing is always a big concern with any EMS organization. And I'm not going to stand up here and deny that that's not going to be a challenge. However, we just recently hired an emergency preparedness position at Carthage Area Hospital. We had 9 applicants for that position. 4 of the applicants were paramedics that were not working at any of the local volunteer fire departments or rescue squads. And 2 other candidates were basic level EMTs looking for that career move and career employment with better wages and better benefits. So I know that there's, a crisis for EMS and staffing, but I also think there are a number of people that are capable of working in the field that don't because of some of the reasons that are out there.
I have a question, Julian.
Yeah.
Kind of piggybacks on Jen. What's the cause for the wait time being so long? And one of them, what Jen just said, not enough staffing. I've experienced that same thing. I had my dad in the emergency room. He was ready to go, and we just had nobody to just let us go. I finally said, "Where should we go?" Because spending 2 hours waiting.
Yes, obviously that is some of it. The other part.
What else is underlying that really long wait?
is the availability of resources to physically transport them from one facility to the other.
So you're saying that what we have currently in place for ambulance services, those ambulances not staffed, they're not available.
Not 100% of the time, not 100% of the time. Ogdensburg Rescue Squad has been great. They, prior to my tenure at the hospital, they had met with the CEO and the COO and come up with a plan to hire some additional staff to provide transports that seem to be working to help that. But there's still times where we call, like right now, we have 3 patients at our Claxton facility that need to be transported to other facilities for emergent, but not emergency, to have central lines placed for long-term treatment that we're scheduling 1 a day to meet that need, to not overwhelm the local resources.
Your rural health clinics, you speak of Carthage, Canton, Hammond, Madrid. You're referring to like Wellnow's?
No, so they're our own, the medical centers, the clinics in Hammond, the walk-in clinic in Carthage, the medical facility in Hammond, and then the school-based clinics at Carthage, Lafargeville, and Beaver River. And realistically, it's our due diligence to include our own facilities in our application for a certificate of need for the ambulance service. Do I see us sending an ambulance to Beaver Falls School from Carthage for a medical emergency? No, because hopefully the local rescue squad is closer. But should that need arise where we need to go there, if we don't include that on our application for a certificate of need, we cannot respond there. So that's the rationale behind including our other facilities there.
This certificate of need, and just to piggyback the staffing issue related to that in the rural health clinics, obviously, I mean, you're not going to be able to bring somebody to one of these medical centers that may require a quick triage, or, could be a serious, could be a stabbing, a shooting, could be anything that's going to require a surgical aspect of some sort. So I wonder what, other than flu-like symptoms and stuff like that, but that's semantics. As far as the staffing, the flexible staffing, obviously, I'm sure we're all well aware of the staffing issues in pretty much any agency, whether it be EMTs, fire safety, volunteer firefighters, volunteer EMTs. And one of the concerns I have is pulling, you talk about a strong pool of per diems, and I imagine a lot of those per diems will come out of volunteer fire departments as EMTs, potentially, right?
Correct.
And in various hours, as Mr. Berto had mentioned, it could be shift differentials, it's not differentials, talking a staffing aspect, but yeah. from a need perspective, I struggle to know how that's all going to come together. As far as the CON is needed, when does that have to be completed?
So we're in the process of submitting that. I'll be honest with you. We underestimated the community concern over our application. We had seen the previous media saying that, EMS resources in this area are overwhelmed. I think the St. Lawrence County EMS Advisory Board actually wrote a letter saying that EMS was in crisis in this county. We expected, organizations like Ogdensburg Rescue Squad and Carthage Area Rescue Squad, who are the most impacted by our plan, to have some opposition from it. But what we didn't expect was some of the outlying areas that are not affected in any way, shape, or form by our plan to be opposed to it. So what we've done now is taken a little bit of time, instead of, filing this application immediately, to come to the council meetings and meet with the board of legislators for the counties and any of the community members that may have concern about our program, to try and explain our rationale behind it. And what we did is the North Country, the process for the CON is that we have to file this application with the North Country Regional EMS Council. And that board was scheduled to meet on October 21st. So what we did when we started to organize this plan is work backwards from that day. They have 10 days from when we file our application to deem it complete. And then from there, they have to schedule a public hearing and it has to be voted on within 60 days. So our thought process was that if we filed the application by the 27th of September, that gave us some wiggle room. Should there be an error or omission, that we would have some time to correct it, still be deemed complete on time for the October 21st meeting.
I'm sorry, and who's that with again?
That's with
The application goes to who again?
The application gets filed with the North Country Regional EMS Council, which is a three county board of emergency services for this region. The program agency is in Watertown.
St. Lawrence, Jefferson, Lewis?
Correct. And, you know, the reason why there was kind of a short turnaround in that is we had met with, you know, some of the local volunteer fire departments and rescue squads, specifically Ogdensburg and Carthage and Guilfoyle Ambulance in Watertown, who we felt were the most impacted by this plan. And after realizing, you know, they had some concerns, we kind of decided to come to these meetings to educate as much as we can about our plan, to show that, you know, this really is not our intention. And quite frankly, you know, they opened our eyes a little bit on the process, that if they were concerned about us, you know, taking over completely, because like I said before, if we're issued a CON, there's no restrictions on it. You can't say, you know, it's not like in the police world where you're restricted by jurisdiction. If you're issued a CON, you can provide ambulance service anywhere that it's granted. So the roundabout way that we thought that would give everybody a little bit more comfortable feeling that we weren't trying to, you know, take over EMS in the 3-county region was that if we amended our application and restricted our geographic locations, that might make people feel that our intentions were truly pure.
Does North Country EMS have any, that's the final say?
No, that there is a process to appeal to the state should our application be denied locally.
But if EMS denies, let's say they approve it, then it doesn't go anywhere else.
Correct. Then it goes to the state health department for the issuing of operating authority.
Your job creation, your initial hiring includes 4 full-time paramedics. Do you already have them in the hopper?
No, I mean, like anybody else, it's a small knit community in the EMS world. I mean, people have already approached us as we've gone public with this, saying, hey, I'd be interested or I wouldn't be interested. We have some people that have already submitted applications, even though we're not accepting applications for these positions now, and we've retained any of those resumes on file. And some of the people that were not selected for our emergency preparedness position, our healthcare recruiter reached out to them and asked them if they would be interested in retaining their application on file for future consideration, and all of them were willing for that.
North Star Health Alliance, where else are you affiliated? Is this
Claxton
enough?
Hepburn Medical Center, Carthage Area
Carthage.
Hospital, North Country
In
Orthopedic
North
Group,
Country.
and Meadowbrook Terrace, which is our assisted living facility in Carthage. Those are the 4 main entities that compromise.
In your position with them?
I'm the Vice President of Emergency Services and Security.
And Mr. Berto?
I do through contract work for the administration in
Are you also the mayor of Carthage?
West Carthage.
West Carthage.
I mean, the other thing I'll add too is when you're talking about staffing, there's, you know, Clarkson has a new paramedic program. Midstate has a paramedic program that they have a virtual site in Watertown. There's going to be about 60 paramedics graduating between these programs here this summer, right? And if we can't find the appropriate staffing to start immediately, I think we're prepared to push back our deadline and hope that we can get some of these candidates that are recent graduates from paramedic school to apply and be interviewed for our organization. And I think our plan also, JCC established a paramedic program a while back, and originally it flooded, some of the local volunteer fire departments and rescue squads with a pool of paramedics that really didn't have gainful full-time career employment. And that program no longer exists in Watertown. So now it's a combination of the mid-state program that does the training along with Clarkson now. So, we've engaged some of the EMS training agencies to see if we can, hold our own EMT classes and what that would cost to, build them. But getting to that paramedic level takes some time, and it's going to, no secret that it, takes 9 months to get somebody, and it takes years to get the experience.
Thank you. That's all I got.
I have a couple more questions.
Yeah, sorry, Jen, should let you go.
No, that's fine. No. So, we can always talk about percentages and numbers, and, we can make them work however we want to make them work when we do presentations, correct? And so I always have some additional questions with those percentages.
Absolutely.
So, you talked about your 30-hour outliers and things, and, those could be weather related. They could be numerous things, because you don't always see that when you're seeing somebody waited 30 hours for a transport. But from when I talk to leadership in other large medical centers across the state, a lot of what they're seeing is they don't always have the beds available, because so many of the local hospitals are doing less and less procedures. They're less and less specialized. So they're sending more transports out. So many times they may want to go to Upstate Medical because they have family there and it's closer, but they end up going to Albany Med, or they end up going closer to the city. So how much of that have you been tracking to see if that is part of the reason for the longer delays in getting people ready to go once you have deemed them ready to be transported, finding them a bed? Did you keep those numbers?
I mean, the data that we pulled for that, we do not mark them ready to be transported until we already have the bed secured from that facility. However, I will say that sometimes the delay in discharging those patients and getting them transported to the other facility has caused us to lose those beds because we can't get them there in a timely fashion. Meaning that, if you need to go to a facility for a cardiac catheterization, the attending physician that accepts that patient, if you tell them our person will be there for 8 hours, he's like, no, then we're going to give the bed to somebody else, because there is a high demand for those beds, because those tertiary care facilities like, SUNY Upstate or Krause are taking patients from all over the state. So it's kind of a first come, first served basis. So the sooner we can get our patients out the door and get them to those facilities, our risk of losing those beds decreases also.
So in follow up to that, how is the communication level? Because when you're a family member sitting there with someone that is very ill, waiting for transport, you don't know what's going on. So you're automatically thinking, gosh, they want to transfer somebody out and we're waiting, and it's the ambulance. You always think it's the ambulance service. But how much is that communication so that the expectations, because I had a number of people from the area contact me and with their experiences, and I know what it feels like because I recently went through it. But so many of us have, and when they're not understanding that difference, that's a big concern. So I hope that the communication level could be there a little better on that part. But so when somebody is deemed ready for transport, you've got a bed. If you have your ambulance service, you're saying per diem, we're already concerned about staffing levels. Is it going to be like an all-call, whoever's first? So you're not going to just automatically eliminate other ambulance services if they could be there in an hour versus your people won't be ready for 2? Are you going to go with the people that are the hour ready?
No, our goal is to staff our ambulance with one at each facility. And then should we have a second patient that simultaneously needs to be transferred, our first call will be to the closest available staffed ambulance, meaning Ogdensburg Rescue Squad, Carthage Area Rescue Squad, Guilfoyle, Seaway Valley, to do that. We're not going to take the time to recall people in to staff that ambulance, because you got to remember, this reserve ambulance could be at our garage in Carthage. Mm-hmm. So if that patient is here at Claxton and needs to go, obviously we're not going to recall staff that might take an hour to get in, then it takes them an hour and 15 minutes to drive up here. We're not any further ahead than we were before. So our plan is, to staff have our ambulances ready to go there. And I think that's the interesting part of how, our operations center can monitor these patients, so that's one thing, we'll benefit from is when the nursing supervisor gets the call that we have a patient that needs to be transported, and they contact the operations center, and we just say, hey guys, we got a patient in the ER, let's go. The operations center is also supposed to be following up with our procedure that says, do you have anybody else in the immediate future that might need a transport? And if they say, yeah, we just got a guy that came in, we're not done with this assessment, but it looks like he's, might be having a heart attack, he might have to go for a cath too. That's where we can say, okay, our guys aren't going to be back for 4 to 6 hours. We need to contact the local rescue squad and say, hey, we got somebody in the hopper that might need a transport. Do you have a crew available? Do you not have a crew available? And that's how that would work.
On the other side of that, partnering with the locals and providing better service for our citizens and the locals, is as you've said, some of these transports are 4, 6, 7 hours to Albany. You're taking the local emergency response out of the area for 7 hours to answer the 911 calls locally while they're on it. Will increase the patient care in our hospital system, but also to your residents.
And I guess I'll just reiterate, and then I probably am done with my questions, but the concern that I have is a sincere concern about the wait times just in your emergency department alone. So if you can't staff that, and now we have to trust that this is going to be staffed when this can't be staffed properly, and then you've got this issue, I don't want people sitting there waiting because you're waiting for somebody to come in to drive the ambulance when we could call X number of other
Correct.
services.
I can tell you 100% confidence that the 18, 20 hour, 24 hour, 26 hour outliers are not because our emergency room staff can't take the time to discharge the patient from the emergency room. And that's great feedback, and I will take that back to, some of the people at the ER staff and when we have our staff meetings and let them know that there seems to also be a delay in the patients being ready to be discharged, but obviously they're prioritizing those patients. But I think it's a combination of that, but I think our bigger concern and the reason why we're proposing this ambulance service is not because the nurses can't discharge the patients, it's because we can't get the staffed ambulances in a timely fashion to transport them. And we hope that by having them there and on site, we can reduce those wait times.
With that being said, with all due respect, how do you schedule an emergency room department, whether it be at a rural health center or a local hospital, receiving area to your service?
You say that again?
How do you correlate the actions of an emergency room, the brevity of activity that's going on in an emergency room at any given time compared to your arrival or call for that matter? I mean, as far as service, regarding, it's, I'm not going to say it's first come, first service, first come, first serve, but primarily it's based off of need. And you're not going to have any control over an emergency room, and they're dealing with the same staffing issues that you're dealing with.
We're not transfer or not take them to another emergency.
That's not what I'm suggesting.
Oh, that's
No, I don't know how you can correlate a busy emergency room from North Star Health Alliance bringing in an individual who needs medical care compared to how busy that emergency room might be. I guess maybe I got your question confused.
No, I don't think so.
So
Yeah,
you can't correlate. I mean, it's good to bring that up, but we got staffing issues everywhere, right? And you can't walk. I mean, you can throw that feedback at them or our feedback back at them, but by the basis of need for medical attention is going to be that's how an ER works.
And that's a triage system. They have to take the staff that they have
right
and prioritize those patients that need medical attention at the time. And if it
I guess that's why I couldn't understand where you were going with her response to her.
No, I guess what I was saying is we'd send out these surveys when you're done your emergency room. We ask for feedback, and sometimes we don't always get that feedback. But that's somebody like myself can go back to a staff meeting and say, hey, one of the issues that was raised is that, people have had experience at the ER where they're ready to go home and they're just sitting there waiting for somebody to give them the piece of
You're on the
paper.
other side of the coin now. All right. Yeah.
Somebody's waiting for them to give them a piece of paper that says you're free to go now, where if we could just take 2 seconds and do that, now this next staff member can get in there and clean that room and it's ready for another patient and the process can keep going. So, hopefully they can do that.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure I understood what
Thank you.
she was asking as well. Do you have to have this in by the, I mean, this kind of came up pretty quickly, right?
Well, like I said,
in October or this mid-September, I believe.
Yeah, we've been in the process of planning to file this application, the process of going through it. The first step, the reason why the council got these letters is you're required by law to notify all EMS agencies, all municipal governments, all medical directors of EMS agencies, and a group of other people that are listed on that regulatory requirement. It's, it says you have to notify them. Traditionally, the process of filing a CON is you give them a snapshot of your plan to provide ambulance service, along with the definition of public need, and then you ask for their support of your application. And like I said, we did what traditionally anybody that applies for a CON does. Sends that letter, outlines our plan, gave you a quick snapshot. We hope to do interfacility transfers from our 2 facilities. This is what public need is, and we hope for your support. Like I said, we didn't anticipate the feedback that we're getting now on it. And like I said, it has been eye-opening, it has caused me personally to, push back our timeline to come address, council members and other governing bodies to give them a bigger picture of what our plan is. And is there a day that we have to file this by? No, these were our timelines that we set.
You established.
That we established.
Understood.
Based on that October 21st meeting, working backwards.
Gotcha. I understand, yeah. You'd be waiting another quarter.
No, by law, they're required to meet the statutory requirement. So they're going to have hold a special meeting.
We were just trying to make it flow with their scheduled meeting already. And then when we realized there was some feedback, we needed more time to have these discussions, and provide more data and information why there's a need for that. We will push our timelines back. This is what we're required.
Very good.
I don't know if this is helpful enough, but a lot of the feedback I've heard from folks is dissatisfaction with the quality of care that they get in Claxton. And the question I hear all the time is, why don't they invest in increasing the quality of care rather than just trying to get everybody out? Saying, you know what, we can't handle this, so we're just gonna ship them out. Let's just ship them out back.
Correct. And that is obviously some concerns that we've had, right? So one of the reasons why we're undergoing a transition here at Claxton, and I can speak to this, briefly, but we are in the process of separating our Article 31 mental health facility to a separate Article 28 critical access hospital to make them both more financially viable and sustainable for the long-term picture, right? Because when Claxton was originally 128 bed hospital, as the population and the census in the community has decreased, it's been difficult to provide that same level of service without compromising something, right? Medicare rates are down, insurance reimbursement rates are down. So to make the organization, be financially viable, we've had to, strategically come up with ways to do that. One of the ways that we can do that is to become a critical access hospital and have only 28 beds versus 100 and separate our mental health facility from that. And the question of why don't we invest the money into that to keep these services there? Because some of these services, like cardiac catheterization, is just nearly impossible at a rural health hospital. One is a physician's salary is over $1 million for a cardiac specialist that does catheterization. The operating rooms that you would need, the staffing that you would need, and then the ability to recruit them to an area like this that's not a bigger metropolitan system is hard. So while I've heard that same thing from other people as I've been talking about our ambulance service, you're not alone to say that. The reality of it is this is the best option to, some of the services we are trying to retain, like, simple surgical procedures, specializing, like the Renal Care Center, for example. The Renal Care Center that we have here is something that will not go away. That's a community need that we won't be transporting our patients for dialysis, obviously. So that's one of the things that we have strategically chose to keep. We just can't do it all,
In the services that are, we can provide, they are looking to do it best in both their funding and grant funding. I'm sure you've seen like this psychiatric children's, they just received $5.8 million to expand from 10 inpatient beds to 20 inpatient beds. And then they also received a $5 million grant to have the first emergency CPAP.
Community psychiatric emergency
Room. So it'll be the first one north of Albany. So they'll have a floor dedicated. So emergency patients that come in for psychiatric and mental will have their own emergency room to go to. They won't take up beds in the emergency room. And they'll have direct mental health care professionals working with them instead of emergency room staff. So some of those services they are investing in and they are seeking some funding. So we'll provide additional care.
Anybody else? Questions? I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Have you received a letter of support from any other ambulance services?
From other ambulance services?
In the local area?
Trying to think, right now we have 24 letters of support and 6 or 7 letters of opposition. And the letters of support are a mix of municipalities. I think Tri-Town Rescue Squad is the only ambulance service that sent us a letter of support. I think there's some fire departments that sent us in letters of support, or first response agencies that sent in letters of support, but actual New York State Department of Health approved ambulance services in this county, Tri-Town is the only one.
Do you absolutely need a letter of support from municipalities?
No, like I said, the process that's required is that we just notify all municipalities, all ambulance services. But I think it would be unprofessional for us to send a letter to the city of Ogdensburg and say, we're notifying you of our intent to establish an ambulance service, period. So the traditional format for this is, and of course we would love to have the support of the city government where our hospital is at.
Right. Well, I've been educated tonight, and thank you for coming. I think we're going to discuss this some more.
Okay.
But we appreciate it. One thing that I would like to see is support from ambulance services and some kind of agreement. Have you sat down at all with like OBRS or some of the other ones?
Correct.
With a plan together, a partnership type of plan?
So prior to my tenure at the hospital, the rescue squad and the COO were meeting on a regular basis. We did meet with the rescue squad on September 5th to disclose our plan, 100% transparency with the director of operations or the chief there. Because obviously with any organization, there's leaks, right? So obviously the rumor mills were stirring about our ambulance service. And when Mr. Gardner came and met with Brandon and I, we told him, yes, we are planning to apply for a CON for ambulance service. He quite frankly was a little caught off guard by it. Said that he'd like us to discuss it with other board members before we took any action on it, which we agreed to. Unfortunately, they weren't available the next weekend. We couldn't meet again until September 18th. And, I'll be 100% transparency. The optics of that meeting, we had a great meeting with that, to discuss some of that things. And I think, that's where they opened our eyes that, hey, maybe we need to push back our timeline. But unfortunately, we had already, planned on the 27th of September. We had scheduled some media. We had scheduled a press release. And quite frankly, I dropped the letters of support personally in the mail the day before that meeting. But our plan was to meet with them September 5th and the week after that. They just weren't available due to some scheduling. So we stuck to our timeline.
Hope we can schedule some more meetings.
And our plan is to work with them 100%. We can't do this alone with one ambulance at each location. But we also plan to move forward with filing our application.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have one more presentation tonight from Director of Planning and Development, Andrew Smith, for a briefing on the Shade Roller property.
I will be brief.
Brief.
This is with regard to bill number 95 on your agenda this evening, and I thought it would be apropos before asking you to take action on such an item that I give the council and the public a brief overview. So this is the former Shade Roller property is located at 541 Covington Street. This is a property that the city of Ogdensburg foreclosed on and filed the deed in June of 2007. So it's been a property that we have owned for quite some time. And quickly thereafter, the city started applying for and receiving funds to address the dilapidated industrial buildings. Previously, the site had been used for boat manufacturing, match manufacturing, brewing, and shade roller manufacturing, which includes the zinc cyanide electroplating process. And that was initiated at the Shade Roller Factory in 1945 and continued until 1987. I promise I'm not going to be here that long. I know I'm going back in time, but that process was changed in 92 when it became cyanide free. But just a brief kind of overview of the uses will illustrate the contamination that we have been dealing with. The city has received various funds in support of the cleanup efforts that started in 2009. That include federal EPA funds, as well as Empire State Development Restore New York funds, and even funds from the St. Lawrence River Valley Agency. In total, the city has invested just under $2.3 million to demolish the buildings, abate asbestos, and conduct cleanup, including our most recent activities that occurred between July of 2022 and January of 2023, in which we completed the removal of metals contaminated soils and PCB contaminated concrete. That cleanup effort is detailed in the resolution in terms of what we accomplished through those interremedial measures, which is what we refer to them as. We disposed of 112 tons of PCB contaminated concrete, which was brought to Belleville, Michigan as a hazardous material. And we also brought in 282 tons of clean fill. The result of that cleanup effort, the most recent cleanup effort from July of 22 to January of 23, resulted in the city achieving its goal of meeting the restricted residential level of cleanup, which is the same level of cleanup that we have at the adjacent site at the Diamond National site. with the exception of the former railroad right-of-way, which is not an area where we had focused on doing cleanup efforts, primarily because that has always been an area that the city identified as a place where we would bring utilities to the site. So as we've been working with the DEC and the EPA to bring this cleanup project to completion, we had to revisit what to do with the railroad right-of-way. And what was agreed upon in 2023 was that we would subdivide the Shade Roller property and actually create 2 parcels where we would keep the former railroad right-of-way, which used to be its own parcel, but was at one point in time combined. This would be reserved and held by the city while we would continue to market the Shade Roller property. And this is restricted by the DEC to an industrial cleanup level. So the right-of-way does not support mixed-use residential development, commercial development like the remainder of the site does. But it will support utilities, which is what we envision it being used for, whether that's a road, whether that's gas, electric, water, sewer, et cetera. So it works well for us as a conduit to bring utilities to the site. It also allows us to move the majority of the site forward under the much less restriction of the restricted residential cleanup standards. So the resolution before you tonight in item bill number 95 would provide the authority to the city manager to execute the deed and the accompanying transfer documents that would subdivide the Shade Roller property, allowing the city to ultimately retain ownership of the railroad right-of-way in perpetuity, and keep that for the purpose of utilities going forward.
Excellent. Sounds like we very much need this in order to move the property forward easier anyways, and have access.
Well, a little quicker than we anticipated, am I right, Susan?
That was
Quicker?
Well, we all want it yesterday, but I mean, in reality, great job.
The Shade Roller process, as with the Diamond National, and we're learning now with the cheese plant, these take a long time from the date that the city is able to foreclose. It takes a lot of resources and partnership, collaboration to bring them to completion, but we are at the finish line. We have, I think, learned a lot on this site, and it's been a good project.
Andrea, confirm my thoughts here that this makes it easier to market the old Shade Roller property because we're removing the restrictions on cleanup that would be associated with it if it remained one parcel.
Correct. So if the council chooses not to subdivide, which you certainly have the option to do, we would then, even though the contamination is only within a very small portion of the overall right-of-way, in fact, those restrictions would be imposed on the entire site. So the entire site would only be available for industrial reuse in accordance with the standards prescribed by the DEC.
So
For the right of way.
the contamination that remains unremediated is all within that railroad right of way?
Correct. That is correct. There is a map accompanying your resolution that illustrates graphically what that looks like. It's approximately 60 feet wide, and it goes the length of the parcel.
Any other comments?
Nope.
I think it's excellent. And,
Thank you.
It's going to certainly enable us to move forward on that property quicker. It gives us an avenue to provide infrastructure. So, thank you, Andrea.
Thanks.
Okay, our proclamation was already moved this evening. We have public hearing. However, we don't have any public hearings tonight. So that brings us to personal appearance. At this time, if anyone attending in person would like to address council, please come down to the podium and you will have 5 minutes to discuss any issues you'd like to with the city.
to share this. I wish I had more copies. How you doing? Good, how you doing, man? Good. Sorry, I wish I had more copies.
Thanks, Greg.
Hopefully my 5 minutes is just beginning now. Greg McNamara, 805 Pearl Street. Back on April 9th, I set up a meeting and some of you helped get this set up. I wanted Scott Goldie and all of you there, which wasn't able to happen, but I still appreciate you setting it up. In that meeting was Mayor Tooley, Andrea Shane Brown, Chief Kearns, and myself. We talked about some things I'm not going to get into, but it definitely had to do with major civil rights violations and some things that absolutely should not have happened to me during the last administration. And I was hoping this administration would do something to make it right. I received a letter from the Office of the City Attorney, and this is what it says. It says alleged claims against the City of Augsburg. The Augsburg City Council met with me in executive session on April 9th, 2024. So excuse me, I was wrong about the meeting date. That was on March 28th. But anyways, you guys met in executive session to discuss the claims you raised in your meeting with the mayor and other officials on March 28th, 24. Now, it wasn't other officials, it was city employees. You guys are the officials. I wish to advise that the city council, not the attorney himself, that the city council has concluded that your claims are not legally enforceable and will not be making an offer to you. I made it extremely clear in that meeting that, and Mayor Tooley concluded it with this, that it would go to council and you guys would figure out what you were going to do to move forward with this. I made it extremely clear that I was not necessarily looking for an offer or anything monetary like that at all. I thought that would have been inappropriate at that point in time at the meeting. So I foiled and asked the city to have Mr. Goldie put his money where his mouth is and put his name on this explanation, because the city council can't come to this determination. The city council is not attorneys. Are any of you an attorney? I didn't think so. So I asked for this, and then I received this letter. Please note your FOIA request regarding a legal document from the city with a determination regarding your claims that is the opinion of Scott Goldie, not city council, is being denied under Public Officers Law, Article 6, Section 87, subsection blah, blah, blah. And then there's just a bunch of word salad beyond that. Well, like I said, none of you are attorneys, and I've spoke with some of you. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot, but I was also told that in that executive session, that's not how things went. And you guys didn't come to that determination, is what some of you sitting at that table told me. Now, I don't want to get any more into that. Now I'm going to get into some more recent stuff. And that whole ordeal had to do with me being expelled from this building illegally for 2 weeks in the summer of 2022, and me being kicked out of this meeting with threat of arrest by Mark Kearns. It was a complete violation of my constitutional rights, blatantly. And I have a video if you would like to see that too. Mayor Tooley has seen it. Moving on. On May 25th of 2024, I had another major civil rights violation take place against me by an Augsburg police officer. I'm not going to get too far into the details with that because it's a very serious matter that might make things a little bit worse for the city, honestly, if this isn't resolved. But I put in FOIA requests, I believe on the 28th. It was just a couple, 3 days after. It happened on a holiday weekend. I wanted to request the body camera footage of that day, what took place, and I also requested some body camera footage of some different incidences. Over 150 days went by. I received a pile of letters just stating that the FOIA request is going to be processed to the further date, but it's going to get processed. And then after, well, this letter is dated September 30th. I didn't receive it till almost October 10th, I believe. And there's 2 of them, and they're for different instances where I requested the footage. And I'm going to try to, the first paragraph is just a word salad of legal mumbo jumbo explaining how municipalities can charge for the medium or different things charges related to FOIL requests that can happen. It also says that an outside service agency may be needed to process these requests, which I thought during police reform that would all been taken care of when we decided police were going to wear body cameras. The city needed to make sure that we had the ability to process this information and get it to people. With respect to your FOIL request regarding body cam footage for a given scenario, it is estimated that a minimum of 3 hours will be required to retrieve body cam footage for each and every incident requested. In accordance with the attached body cam FOIL rates, notice the total minimum cost, including the cost of the storage devices, will be $117.61 per incident of body camera footage. If you wish to proceed with your FOIL request, please submit a bank check or money order for the total amount due for each and every incident of body cam footage you have requested to this office within 30 days of the date of correspondence. Upon receipt of payment, the body cam footage will be secured for the finalization of your FOIL request. In the event more than 3 hours is required to secure the body cam footage requested, you will be notified of the additional amount due. If the payment is not received within 30 days, your FOIL request will be considered withdrawn and closed. Now, it took them 150 some days to send me this, but I have 30 days to come up with $250. That's just to get this started. The way this letter reads, it could cost $1,000. I don't know how much an outside agency costs if the city's not equipped to do this, but I'll have to say that, first of all, did any of you come to this determination or know what this is going on? Well, at least I got a nod before. I don't get any nods from anyone now. For these charges to be put in place, the council should have voted on this. It should have went for a public hearing and a referendum, not. You guys have already added a lot of extra charges to city services. I shouldn't have to pay any hourly salary of any police officer. And I've brought this stuff to the city manager in a meeting, and if police are being accused of committing misconduct, he should absolutely want that information brought to light so it can be handled appropriately. What if somebody didn't have the financial resources to pay for this and they were wronged, truthfully, and they can't get the information because they're being stonewalled with an astronomical amount of money to get a FOIL request? Both these instances too were a lot less than even a half hour long. So for it to take 3 hours to produce the tape seems kind of excessive. Well, I since found out who made this decision, and it was Chief Kearns. And I don't think he should have the ability to make that decision. It should be you, the government body, if you're going to add fees to anything in the city of Ogdensburg, or for people to get stuff that's related to the Freedom of Information Request law. That's unreal. And I'll tell you is why this happened and has happened. I'm still going to get the footage. Don't worry. Yeah, it's because they don't want me to have the footage because they know they did was wrong. And I was told that it's because of a big influx in people requesting body camera footage. One thing I could suggest that would stop that from happening as much is if police quit doing dumb shit. Thank you.
All right, is there anyone else at this time? Ken?
Councilors, Ken Gardner, 119 Elizabeth Street, also Chief of Emergency Rescue. You know how much I love coming to you and talking to you. I have a ton of notes. This would be so much easier if you guys were asking me questions, but not once tonight did you hear an admission that this is a hospital problem. It is a hospital problem. They are not hiring qualified physicians. They're not enhancing the care for the community. They're decreasing the care for the community, and they're trying to put the burden on EMS. For them to get a CON, they need to prove the certificate of need for all of St. Lawrence County, Lewis, and Jefferson counties that we are not able to do our jobs. They cannot prove that. They will not be able to prove that. To Mr. Powers, the second, well, you were asking about the process. It goes to Remsco first. Of Remsco, 99% of us are ambulance company owners, so we're all going to have to recuse ourselves. So there will not be a vote in Remsco. It'll end up going straight to the state. The state will get tied up in the committee. They will not have a vote on it until, if they're lucky, August of next year, of which I doubt it will be a positive outcome. Wait times. Wait times are not on us. We brought just last week a hemorrhagic stroke. Somebody's bleeding in the brain. Confirmed as soon as we came through the door, got the CT, had our transport team ready to go, called and told them we were ready. It was 5.5 hours until they were able to get that patient ready to go and be transported out. It is not on us. It is on the hospital. The hospital is letting down this community, and it is time for them to step up and become a real hospital again. I think I'm a little bit ticked off, so I think I should probably stop right there, but it's certainly not on Augsburg Rescue or anybody else in getting transports out. In fact, we have intentionally put transport crews on and met with them and have them on at the hours that Claxton Hepburn has requested. Those talks were going wonderfully for a year and a half as trying to come up with a solution until our last meeting, which was not a good meeting, I will object to, because we were flat out lied to in that meeting, and we have now asked for it. We need some time before we sit back at the table because we're tired of being lied to. I thank you for your time. Once again, I ask you for a resolution denying their request for a COA. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening. Tanya Snyder, once again speaking about double water rates and sewer rates that I pay while others do not pay the proper water and sewer rates. Based on responses I received from FOIL requests, I have FOILed. The public should know that currently there are 2 commercial businesses opened on Ford Street that are not metered like every commercial business in the city has been required to be. One of the business pays a fire protection charge only, and the other pays a single residential rate. I can tell you I'm not pleased that I'm paying more than both these commercial businesses, any more than I'm pleased that I'm paying double rates and many other home occupancies are not. I see on tonight's agenda that there is a resolution to call for a public hearing to amend the code to attempt the right the wronged and try to make it equal for home occupancies and require them to pay double rates currently like I pay. But again, I will ask, how will it be enforced? It has not been enforced for years, and quite frankly, not the only home occupancies paying double rates are those who have approached the city when they open their home businesses like I did, because clearly nobody has been enforcing the municipal code. This issue was raised to the current council in May, almost 6 months ago, and I still, as far as I can determine from my FOIL request, there are only 3 home occupancies paying double rates. Have the letters gone out yet? You know, the letters of the 30 to 40 suspected home occupancies as discussed in the 923 meeting. Are any of those properties, are they paying the correct rates? I also see in tonight's agenda that the resolution is to accept the city manager's 2025 preliminary budget. So I must ask, does that include the revenue from the 20 to 30 that are supposedly paying double rates? And does the budget account for the 30 to 40 suspected home occupancies that staff is supposed to contact? Or does the budget include increases in water and sewer rates for all property owners, as we have seen over the past years? I will ask again that if the city was properly enforcing the code and charging properties accurately, would the percentage of increases over the years been this necessary? These increases affect all taxpayers. Clearly, the city has not properly been charging properties because, again, there are 2 commercial businesses operating on Ford Street not paying the correct rates. I will ask again, who's holding these people accountable for doing their jobs and making sure people are paying the correct rates? The 2 Ford Street properties are alone a loss of revenue. And what about other commercial properties, home occupancies in the city and that the city and staff has failed to identify for years? I feel like a broken record. I keep on asking the same questions over and over with no change and yes, no response. Let's talk about that. Following 2 FOIL responses I received on Ford Street's properties, I sent 2 specific questions to code enforcement officers. I got no response. So I forwarded these questions to all members of council, both code enforcement officers, the director of planning and development, who oversees the code enforcement department, and the city manager. Guess what? Still, I did not receive 1 response. What does a taxpayer need to do to get the city to get an answer to a question? I filed a FOIL request on the 20 to 30 properties paying double rates and sewer rates that were indicated in the 9/23 meeting. And I received a response that said there were no documents responsive. Oh, wait, I lost my spot. Responsive to your request. I personally found it unbelievable that there's not 1 document responsive to my request simply because a partial status report on my property in those properties paying double rates are documents. So I filed a FOIL appeal and I received the FOIL appeal response from the city manager, doubling down on the initial FOIL response. So again, I am at a loss. No response to emails with simple questions to staff, no ability to speak to anyone when I come into City Hall, no response from a member of council and let's be honest, I only received a response to my FOIL appeal because it was required by law. I am not quite sure why a taxpayer cannot get any answers to questions about an issue I raised 6 months ago. During just those 6 months, well, I've been asking for equitability with this council. I have paid 2 May water rates, 2 August sewer rates, and November water bill is coming up shortly. I know everybody is sick of hearing me ask about it, but I'm sick of paying double rates when others do not. I have been paying these rates for 4 years. So I look forward to how council will resolve the unequal treatment of taxpayers, how council will direct staff to finally address the issue, who will actually end up paying the proper water and sewer rates following a potential change of code, and how council and city manager will justify to every taxpayer how water and sewer rates have increased over the past years and may increase again in 2025 when there are clearly a loss of water and sewer revenue for years, as I have already identified. I have provided the city clerk a copy of the statement to be included in the minutes. I guess in the city, a taxpayer is penalized for being honest and trying to comply with the code by contacting the city before opening a business, when those who do not save money, pay less because there is no enforcement. And again, it is discrimination. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. We usually don't at this time, but we can discuss
Discussion
it under items for discussion or old business maybe. Or even when we have the item number, I think would be a better time. I think definitely we all have questions. So, but let's give everybody in the public a chance to speak. Right? All right, is there anybody else?
My name is Dave Rucco. My sister's Angela. She had an apartment with 2 houses. She was paying double sewer rates.
Right.
She moved into it. She went to the city and said, can you just charge it as one? Because she's the only one that lives there. They said, sure, we'll do that for you. Well, they didn't do that. And now you're coming up with some sort of deal where you say, under the charter, it says, we can only go back 1 year. Well, the charter doesn't say, yeah, if we told you, we were going to pay you, we weren't going to keep taking your money. That's stealing. When you keep taking somebody's money, when you say, yeah, we're not going to take it, you can't expect the city manager asked, what responsibility do you think? She asked her, what responsibility she has? Her responsibility was, she trusted the city, sir. Shouldn't she trust the city? I guess you don't want to look at me, hey? Shouldn't she trust the city? When you trust somebody, when you ask somebody, hey, will you stop doing this? Stop taking money from me, and then you don't want to give it back? That's pretty basic. That's stealing. Don't try to hide behind some charter. The charter doesn't say that. So treat you. These are your these are the people. They're citizens of the city. You're doing her wrong.
Thanks, Dave.
Patty Denner, I live over on Seymour Street, and I'm here to support OVRS in denying this or opposing this resolution to the new ambulance service. I think if you ask anyone why an ambulance service can't get out, it's number one is personnel. There's not enough people. I think it's extremely optimistic to think that you're going to hire people from an agency that has just graduated. You're going to hire people from the agencies that currently are employing these people. Thereby, you're going to decimate the smaller ambulance services that are out here in all three counties. It's not a matter of not enough ambulances. It's a matter of not enough people. Volunteer fire department is the same thing. Same scenario. So I'm asking that you do not support this new ambulance service. It's not a matter of not enough ambulances. It's not enough people. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience?
Hi, my name's Arlene Kai. I'm here with Double Sewer and Water. I attended the last meeting September 23rd, and the city manager told us that there was 20 to 30 business and it was accurate. When the foil got put in, nothing was accurate. There's nothing on it. What's that say about the September 23rd meeting? Who worked on it? Andrea told me at the last meeting that daycare providers were easy to find. She just had to sit at a computer and pull us up. So if you're going to do it right, do it fair. Quit telling us things, do it. But it's all businesses. Even if it's a desk at a house, you're still using that house as an address. So don't sit here and just dickle us back and forth. Let us know what you're going to do. It's not that hard to come up with a decision. It's been gone for years.
Thank you, Aaron. Anybody else in the audience? All right. Seeing no one, if anybody attending remotely would like to address council, please use the raised hand feature. City clerk will recognize and unmute one person at a time, and you two will have 5 minutes.
I do not see any hands raised, sir.
Okay. That being said, do we have any correspondence?
We do not.
That brings us to the consent agenda. The claims as enumerated in the general fund warrant number 19, 2024 in the amount of $1,149,405.69. Library warrant number 19, 2024 in the amount of $0. And capital fund warrant number 19, 2024 in the amount of $187,732.03. And community development fund warrant number 19, 2024 in the amount of $45. And community renewal fund warrant number 19, 2024 in the amount of $0 as audited, be and the same hereby are ordered paid. I so move.
Second.
City clerk, please call the roll.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Trim, Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
approved.
Brings us to appointments. We do not have any appointments tonight. So that brings us to items for action. The first item of business will be read by City Manager Fonda Coronis.
A resolution calling for a public hearing regarding an ordinance to amend Chapter 27 of the Ogdensburg Municipal Code entitled Ethics, Code of.
I'll move that.
Second.
And basically, I believe the rundown on this is we're adding an ethics board, correct? Can you fill us in any more with that with the public?
Sure, two changes, and I believe that it's been redlined. There is a section that's misnumbered, so we wanted to correct that. And then at the end, section 27-22 or 23 is adding as you mentioned, an ethics.
All right, any comments?
No, thank you for the staff putting this together.
This is something that's long overdue here, especially the way it's written to assure that people who have ethics complaint made against them are not the ones making the decisions on how it's handled.
Absolutely. All right. Would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Trim,
Yes.
approved.
And the next item, where are we here? Next item for business will also be read by City Manager Fonda Coronis.
All right, a resolution calling for a public notice and public hearing on a proposed ordinance to enter into a lease agreement with St. Lawrence Seaway RSA Cellular Partnership for wireless communications at 701 Russell Street.
I'll move that.
Second.
Any discussion?
This was on the water tower over by Belmont, right?
Correct, and it's a new service, yeah, revenue contract to the city.
Take any revenue we can get. All right, sounds good. Call the roll, please.
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Trim,
Yes.
Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
approved.
Next item of business will also be read by Manager Fonda Coronis.
A resolution to accept the 2025 preliminary budget and direct that the preliminary budget be filed with the city clerk and the controller of the city of Ogdensburg.
I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion?
I want to thank Mr. Cronus for the effort put into this. From a preliminary glance, it looks like an excellent budget. And we'll find out when we have our hearings over the next couple of weeks, but looks good to me. Thank you.
Along those same lines, do we have any update on the audit for past years?
As a matter of fact, I'm glad you brought that up. I expected to see a draft of 2022s today. Could be in my email. When I said close of business, I meant 5 o'clock, but perhaps they were thinking more along the lines of later than that. But I do expect to see that when I check my email again. If not, I've already actually sent out a follow-up email. We also expect to see draft of 2023 by the end of the month. So hopefully our auditors will keep to the schedule that they committed to. And I guess
We have a rough idea what the fund balance was for those 2 years, or is, or where it stands, or what's going on with it?
we do have some. I don't have it committed to memory. I can tell you that in both those years, and Angela, please correct me if I'm wrong, we did run deficits, so that would have lowered our fund balance numbers from one year to the next. I think 2022 was rather large in the $1 million+ range. But the 2023 is small, maybe closer to $250,000. Those are rough numbers that I hope nobody keeps me to. Those are just kind of what memory serves me. And they're not audited yet, right? Perfect numbers.
All right, anybody else? Call the roll, please, Kathy.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Trim?
Yes.
Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Approved.
All right, our next item of business will be read by City Comptroller Angela Gray.
This is a resolution calling for a public hearing on local law to amend chapter
Yeah,
one.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Counselor, I think you skipped one.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
We're
sorry
on
to
Bill
interrupt.
88, I believe, aren't we?
Bill 88.
Number 88, sir.
88, resolution to establish a public hearing date for, oh, the date, yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Didn't want to miss that.
So this one here will be read by city manager. Am I correct on that, or city clerk?
I'll read it.
All right.
A resolution to establish a public hearing date for the preliminary 2025 budget for the city of Ogdensburg.
I'll move that.
Second. And I apologize. Kind of tricky getting used to this. I'm always taking notes and things. It's like, all right, any discussion?
For November 12th, correct?
Correct.
The public.
Correct.
Okay. And call the roll, please.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Trim?
Yes.
Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Approved.
And thank you for not leaving us, Angela. The next item will be read by City Comptroller Angela Gray.
This is a resolution calling for a public hearing on a local law to amend chapter 177, sections 5 and 6 of the Ogdensburg Municipal Code entitled Sewer Rates.
I'll move. Yeah.
All right. Any discussion? All right, call the roll, please.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Trim?
Yes.
Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly?
Yes.
Approved.
And our next item of business will also be read by City Comptroller Angela Gray.
A resolution calling for a public hearing on a local law to amend chapter 215, sections 39, 40, and 41 of the Ogdensburg Municipal Code entitled Water Rates.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just for note, both these public hearings are the same as the preliminary budget hearings on the 12th of November, just for the public.
Yeah, they're going to happen on the same day.
Yeah.
All right, call the roll, please.
Counselor Trim? Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Approved.
And our next item of business will be read by City Manager Fonda Cronus.
A resolution authorizing and approving settlement agreements to an action related to the opioid crisis regarding several defendants.
So moved.
Second. All righty, any discussion?
Just a little background for the public. please.
Sir, the attorneys representing the city in certain opioid actions have come to settlement agreements with a couple of companies. Targeted one, in this case, be the other one. Likely revenue source for the county is very low, but the alternative is to take that on ourselves. So my recommendation of council is to sign on to the settlement agreement.
I believe this happened before.
Yeah.
We weren't as happy as we'd like to be, considering the resources that we put into it, but something's better than nothing, and without having to expend more revenue to, step over a dollar to pick up a dime, I guess we'll take the dime. So,
And we're likely to have more of these come in.
right. All right, call the roll, please.
Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Trim? Approved.
And our next item of business will be read by Public Works Director Shane Brown.
A resolution calling for public notice and public hearing on an ordinance amending chapter 215 entitled Waters of the Code of the City of Ogdensburg.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion?
Can we just have a little background, please?
Certainly. Obviously, we've been dealing with the water sewer issue and home businesses for quite a while now. And so in our last meeting, council had discussed perhaps eliminating the double water and sewer. That would take an action with a public hearing and an amendment of city code. Council also asked us as a staff, as a management team, to go back, review the consequences of what that decision would be, and to come back and perhaps amend the recommendation that we made at the last council meeting. So management did do that. And I will basically go over very quickly what management would like to do, and then maybe talk a little bit about why management decided to do what it did. Management continues to advocate for changing the definition for that commercial residential mixed structure. And you can see that within the ordinance itself. The other thing that management will continue to do is to do its best to identify potential home businesses, send letters out. Obviously, we haven't done any of that yet because we haven't had a decision from council on what direction to go in. But we feel that this is an equity issue, and if that's truly what it is, then solving the equity question is paramount here, not necessarily worrying about workloads or anything along those lines. In addition to that, what management came up with is we were empathetic to an argument about having to have home businesses install a costly meter. And so I thought it was a very good compromise. Instead of asking the home to install and pay the meter rate, we will just charge them the minimum meter rate rather than having to install that. So that is basically what management has come up with. Basic modification from what we discussed at the last meeting. I do want to make a couple of comments that I think will be helpful in the discussion. Perhaps not, but I'm going to make them anyway, as long as I have the floor. No matter what situation, no matter what decision is made on this issue, even if we were to miraculously get a check for $20 million and we were able to put meters in, the issue is not going to solve equity perfectly, right? Even if we put meters in, meters have a minimum rate, and two households that pay a minimum rate, one household could be one person, and the other household could be four, and obviously there's going to be more water there. So even within the meter structure, there's always going to be some unfairness to it. There's no way to be able to completely take the fairness issue and make it perfectly 100% fair. What we can do in the public policy world, where there's very little black and white and lots of gray, is to get as close to fair as we possibly can. What I would say here is that eliminating the double billing altogether creates more inequity than it solves. I get for those who are paying double, and management is sympathetic to the fact that some people were honest, did do the right thing, and others didn't. And that's not, maybe they didn't know. I won't speculate as to the reasons why. We get there's an inequity issue there. There's no question about it. The question is, how do you correct it? And how do you correct it in the best public policy way to do so? Management does believe, and I certainly take the forefront on this, that creating a single rate is going to create more inequity than would if you were to continue with the current process, let alone maybe some of the changes that we've made to try and identify some other inequities and make them right. We appreciate council's concern about time spent, but if this is an issue, if this is a question of equity, if this is a question of fairness, then staff is going to have to get the work done, and we will do so, and we think we've put together a pretty credible plan to be able to do so. The other concern from an equity standpoint we have concern with is going to a single rate, which was the question posed to us at last meeting, really does shift the cost to all residents, and it subsidizes businesses. I made the point before, but I think it's worth mentioning again. It subsidizes businesses at the expense of all the other residents, and businesses that have expenses in our system, a capitalist entrepreneurial system, those expenses are passed on to the customers, or it eats into profits. One of the two. That's how our system works, and we have to charge a certain amount of money to cover our expenses. These are water and sewer funds. They're called enterprise funds for a reason. They are business type funds that have to make at least break even point. And what they should really do is generate a small surplus so that we can pay capital costs into the future. So we think it's important that we consider all of that. The other point I wanted to make is, I know some calculations were made and the number of, well, we think maybe it's only a $20,000 or $30,000 hit one way or the other on revenue, and that might be inconsequential. And I'll say this, and if anybody has read my budget message, you'll understand $20,000 to $30,000 right here today for the city makes a big difference. Period. I can't make it stressful. I hope that in the future, we think of $20,000 and $30,000 as a rounding error. But right now, $20,000 or $30,000 means we can afford to pay the family plan and health insurance policy for an employee. It means a significant portion of an employee's salary. I can go on and on about what $20,000 means in a circumstance where we are running deficits in the general fund and in the sewer fund. We will run them this year. We will run them next year. $20,000 or $30,000 does make a difference. So I just wanted to make that short. And just in conclusion, management doesn't wish to penalize a startup. We do not want to double count or double charge people, some people and not others. That's not what we're trying to do. We just think that eliminating the double water and sewer rates is going to cause more fairness issues than it solves. We just wanted to make that as known. So our proposal is here. We've asked for the public hearing. No matter what council decides, likely they're going to have a public hearing. We had this as an action item. Council is absolutely within its power to amend as it so sees fit. But we figured there's calls for the public. I heard a couple of folks say, make a decision. This is the first step in making a decision. We put something out there. We've called for the public hearing. And council can accept, modify, completely change what's on this piece of paper. But at least we're moving forward on a decision, and you have management's opinion on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I understand your opinion. Any other comments right now?
Shane, are the majority of residential lines 5/8?
They usually, they're pretty much, a lot of them we've been putting in since I've been in, been 3/4.
I'm just checking to see the difference in rates there. So, and personally, I think this is a good compromise. I thank management for coming up with it and working with it. And I'm really glad to see that we're actually defining what a business is. But we do have to make more of an effort to identify the businesses that are not in compliance.
I would like to echo what Councilor Silly said, but I do think we need to make a concerted effort to identify the businesses that are not and ask them to come forward. I do believe a lot of them don't know they're supposed to be doing this, so it's an education process. But with that being said, we still need to make sure that those letters go out if this goes forward. I do think this is a good compromise also. I would also like to suggest that perhaps we have Dank come back and do a presentation to us about water meters, because there's some complications with it and some ways that things can be assigned, equivalent dwelling units, et cetera, that Potsdam, Clayton, and other communities have done at Hewelton. So I think it would be good to enlighten us and the public about what a water meter installation opportunities would be.
Anybody else? I still have many concerns at this moment in time. Obviously, we've seen some emails and some things and some FOIL requests that Tanya Snyder brought up, and this is a mess. One thing I'd like to see, first of all, I'm going to support public hearings so we can move forward and make whatever changes we agree upon. But I would like to see, until we get this mess at City Hall and figured out what these businesses are, personally, I want to see a cease and desist for charging anybody double. Second of all, the questions I have, I appreciate the redefinition. I like it. I don't know what the definition is of a regularly used for business purposes. what is that definition? 30 hours a week, 40 hours a week, things like that. So I do see a potential flaw in there, but at least it's a better cleanup of the definition. And then I have a question. Does this basically mean that the household is going to get a flat rate for the household plus a metered service for the business?
No, what it would mean is they would be paid the meter rate at the minimum number.
Minimal amount, like a median for businesses.
If you were paying double, you're no longer paying double, you're gonna pay a rate that's a bit more than the residential, but nowhere near the double rate.
Right.
And if you were not paying, you're gonna pay a little bit more, you're gonna pay that meter rate as opposed to the residential rate.
I think that's much more fair. But like I said, until we get straightened out who's in, who isn't, who's running these businesses, I think it's completely unfair to be charging if it's only 3 people that have this business, and we know that there's businesses all over town. Until we get organized, the minimum I would like to see, even if we don't eliminate this, and I'm supporting eliminating, but I see the fairness and I would support the meter, only 1 meter for a house, not a separate for two bills. I think we really need to see it cease and desist, but we can talk about that at the public meeting. And let's get our city kind of organized, and meanwhile, quit charging people the double rates until we figure out what's going on. I think there's also a question in terms of inspections that were brought up, and they've been brought up to us. Daycares are regularly inspected, I think 4 times a year by New York State. I'd like to know how that inspection compares to our fire department. Safety inspections, do we need to put an extra inspection on these people? When New York State is trust me, they're tough cookies. They'll write these people up for, it's shocking what they will write a daycare up for. And they make it tough to have a business. And I'll give you an example. My wife ran a daycare, and she had a little 1-foot pool or whatever for the kids to jump in and out of, and they wrote her up for it. And you can't have it, a kid can drown, blah, blah, blah. What can I have? You can have a sprinkler. All right, so she puts a sprinkler out. The next time they come, they write her up for the hose. It's a tripping hazard. I mean, it's mind-boggling what New York State does. I don't think these daycares need an extra. And that's something that we could talk about later on in terms of inspections and things like that. But I think the system is much more fair, and I'll support the public hearing, and we can move on and make any changes myself.
Just a point of information, if a household now or a home business doesn't have to install the meter, if that's the direction you go with, then there wouldn't be an inspection. They would just charge them that meter rate.
So what's the inspection for at that point? Is it a fire department safety, or is it simply to see whether or not the meter is?
Well, the inspections we talked about at the last meeting in our new proposal wouldn't happen because we wouldn't actually be installing, right? That inspection was if the meter is installed, DPWs have to go in there, certify that it's been installed properly, but with no meter installation, you wouldn't need that inspection.
Okay. Thank you.
All businesses in the city are subjected to inspection every 2 years, however.
I think that's a difference.
At least they're supposed to be.
This was strictly to go in to make sure that the meter was installed properly.
Right. Not giving a business a safety inspection.
That is correct.
Right. Okay. Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay.
I have some.
Okay.
I think that the city, if they do an inspection, wouldn't that be they would know that they're running a business? For some kind of account is what I'm trying to say. The city has a count of who's running a business and who's not.
So the issue becomes when the city isn't notified that there's a business, right? If we have
No, but I mean, if there's an inspection, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
So, but not for the home business. The home business inspection, I think we're saying, is just to make sure that the meter's installed.
No, originally,
So I think we're talking about 2 different inspections.
3 different.
Okay, sure.
We're talking about 2 different inspections.
Okay. Maybe we can talk about that more.
Yeah, I'm going to take that offline and we'll get you all the different inspections the city does. You should be able to see that.
There's nobody else. Kathy, can we call a roll?
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Trim, Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
approved.
All right. The next item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith.
This is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Zooks Excavating for demolition services at 1111 Congress Street.
I'll move that.
Second.
All right.
Andrea, I drove by that residence today and it looked to me like the garage is already gone. I did last couple days, in fact, I've driven by there. I remember, it seems to me there was a ramshackle old garage out back, but the house itself was all boarded up, but it looked to me like the garage is no longer there.
I'm unaware that the garage was removed. So this is a resolution to do demolition of the garage, which has been condemned.
So if it's no longer there, I don't know, something we can check on before we actually enter into this agreement? It's behind, is it behind the house and it wouldn't be visible from Congress Street? Okay. I just couldn't see anything from Congress Street and it made me question this when I was looking at it, so.
We did some pictures.
Yeah, and I drove by over the weekend too, and I saw it, but I have the benefit of having a picture of it, so it was easier for me to spot.
Okay.
Well, and if we did approve this and then the garage was gone, then we just wouldn't go forward with the contract.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
If not, I got a piece of property.
All right, can we call the roll, please?
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Trim, Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
approved.
All right, and our next item of business will also be read by Planning Director Andrea Smith.
This is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute an asbestos project monitoring services agreement with Atlantic Testing Laboratories for the demolition of the condemned garage at 1111 Congress Street.
I'll move that.
Second. Alleged.
All right, probably not a lot of
Pretty sure
discussion on
so.
this.
No.
Call the roll, please.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Trim, Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
approved.
All right, our next item of business will also be read by Planning and Development Director Andrea Smith.
This is a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a deed and transfer documents associated with tax map number 48.077-1-3.1, which is the shade roller parcel.
Move that.
Second.
Any more discussion? I know we hit it pretty hard and Andrea gave her presentation. Seeing none, Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
Counselor Trim, Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
And our last item of business will also be read by Director of Planning and Development Andrea Smith. Is this our last? Yes.
No.
Well, restore
Oh, yeah.
for action. Restore New York, right?
This is a resolution calling for public hearing and public notice on the city's proposed Restore New York Round 9 grant application and property assessment list for the strategic demolition, deconstruction, rehabilitation, and/or reconstruction of vacant, abandoned, condemned, and surplus properties within the city's designated brownfield opportunity area.
Make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, call the roll, please. Kathy?
Counselor Trim, Counselor Weaver,
Yes.
Counselor Selly,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly,
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson,
Yes.
approved.
And that brings us to old business tonight.
I'll save it for item for discussion.
Going to find this spot here. So is there discussion? I think, see the first item on here is from North Star Health Alliance. In any discussion regarding their presentation and support for that letter of support, excuse me. All right. We can move on. Bypass, oh, we already did that presentation. Anybody else have any old business? Okay, I do want to address one item. I know it's been plaguing us a little bit, but Mr. Rufus spoke to something tonight, and I just want to ensure the public that the city did make a mistake and we're making it right. It's possible they didn't talk to his sister today to know what's going on, but the city made a mistake some time ago, and that's being taken care of. So I want people to know that, or this whole council. So, all right, new business. Oh, one more under old business. I'm sorry. Charter Review Commission we're still accepting applications, the city. We do have a few, and we'd like to have some more. I believe the deadline for applying is October 31st, and anybody interested in reviewing the charter, making changes perhaps to some of the codes or the charter, we encourage you to please apply through the city website or come and see our city clerk, Kathy Jack herself, who will greet you with a big smile and take care of that process for you. All right, new business. Anybody have new business? No new business tonight. Items for discussion. I have one New York State Bass Nation tournament, and I believe City Manager Fonda Cruz.
I'll take that. I just thought it was important for council and the public to know that through that event, the city hosted 64 anglers with boats and 37 co-anglers with their families. And day one, the record was broken for a 5-fish weight. I'm not a fisherman, so I think that's a good thing. And day two, the record was broken for catching a smallmouth bass, 9-pounder.
New York State record, yeah.
Yep, New York State record. The previous was around 8 pounds. So in my world, I guess that's a crush.
That's a crush.
Yeah. So I just wanted to share that, council. Good event, good exposure for the city.
You know, I've been trying to push it, and Mike Weaver came with me to a bass fisheries meeting back in January. And Ogdensburg is sitting right in the middle of a $180 million a year industry. And I think we can capitalize on it. I'm so happy to see the Bass Nation come here. And hopefully this is the beginning of a long process of integrating this city a little bit more into the bass tournaments and the fisheries that we'll see happen here. I know there's been some changes in the last few years into trying to protect that fishery, and the bass people from not only the Bass Nation but the other organizations are all on board for trying to preserve this fishery that we have. We've made it in magazines as I think at least the #2 spot in America for smallmouth bass fishing, and so we really need to capitalize on this. It's glad to see him. I'm glad to see him here.
I'd like to encourage fishermen through my scuba diving adventures. I believe there's fish even bigger than that out there, at least from what I'm looking at when I'm underwater.
Good, good. Anybody else with items for discussion?
I just wanted to share that I attended the local government conference at Potsdam State today, and it was very informative. A lot of elected officials and administrative staff from across the county were there, and there was a lot about the FOIL process. There was a lot about zoning and planning, the grant administration, finance for local governments. Just a wealth of information. It was very jam-packed, and it was a great event to attend. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Jim. Anybody else? All right, that brings us to citizen participation. At this time, if anybody attending in person would like to address council, come down to the podium, and you will have 2 minutes this time to address council.
William Snyder, 513 John Street. Just got a couple questions. So with the dealing with the water and sewer. So I'd just like to know how these businesses are going to be identified and who's going to identify, who's going to take the time to find all these places.
It's a good question.
Exactly.
I'm sure we're all.
You are not going to find them.
For the
And this is going to be an ongoing thing because you're not going to find them.
And not all they provide.
And nobody is going to raise their hand and say, I want to pay more money. I got a business. It's not going to happen. So I don't know what the plan is. Maybe you have a plan to identify these places. We'll see.
Thank you. Anybody else?
So I would like to address you about the water and sewer again. I do appreciate the factor that we are thinking about contemplating on putting us on hold until we can rectify a situation. I don't mind paying as long as everybody's paying, but I don't feel that you guys can step out there and say, because I've done a lot of foils, and I know you guys know that I've done foils. And when it comes down to it, I can only find 3 of us. So this 28 to 30, I don't know where that's coming from, but you know what? There's a lot more businesses than that. If you feel so, nobody stepped up to the plate. The only reason I'm paying is because I came and asked the city. I bought a house. I wanted to make sure I was in an area that I could open up a business, and that's why I'm paying 2 water, 2 sewer. And that's the reason why the other person's paying it, and I'm not really sure why the other guy, because and you guys can figure out who it is, but you know what? Until it's done fair across the board, I'd hope that nobody was charged any type of money until we find these businesses. And within our FOIL appeal that we did with you, we have an encrypted computer system that we cannot find anybody who's running a home occupancy. So I guess I question that whole situation. How are we going to find these businesses? And I think that's what maybe my husband was trying to get at, because that was through a FOIL from Mr. Cronus, that we had basically asked about the 20 to 30 properties, and that they spent 2 hours on it looking at it to find, they found no documents. So you didn't even find myself. So how can you not find me when I've been paying it for 4 years? This is why I really hope it's fair the way that you guys want to do it. I mean, I hope you come up with the right plan. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question on what's being done about the aging infrastructure for the water and sewer. I live in a house that was built in 1879. The water and sewer pipe, I know the sewer pipe is broken because I had a tree that used to grow roots. You're nodding your head, Mr. Powers, you know what I'm going to say. I had a tree that was growing roots into the sewer pipe that backed up the sewer in my cellar for the first 3 years that I lived there. I've lived there now 30 years and nothing has been done about that sewer pipe. They know it's bad. How do we address that? Who do I address that to? I mean, the city came down and fixed, you know, the clog that was in the sewer pipe. And they know that it was in their sewer pipe just by the length of what was out of their roto-rooter or whatever that thing is called. It's 10 feet from my house to the sewer pipe. They had a 25-foot snake, and that snake had 1 revolution left on it, maybe 6 feet. So they know that it's in their pipe, in our pipe, the city's pipe. Why did they never address that pipe? Why is nobody ever addressing these issues? I mean, we've known about this for a very long time. We knew about it when it happened on Elizabeth Street and all of those houses backed up after the rain runoff, because the rain runoff and the sewer get mixed together with these broken pipes. So is anybody addressing that? Is anybody addressing the aging infrastructure?
I would say yes. It's very complicated.
We know the last project was Patterson Street, right? I mean, you know, from Patterson Street all the way to Proctor Ave, all of those pipes need to be replaced. We know
It's something that council talks about often.
there's a whole lot of talking, but
I know.
not a lot. Exactly. But I'm paying increased sewer rates, increased water rates every single year for the last 30 years. And my sewer pipe is still bad. Not happy about it.
I would suggest your first step is to come on in with your address and talk to the city manager, and maybe if we have something going on right now in that area or eyeing it, you could probably.
Well, I'll tell you that a few years ago, my neighbor across the street had a broken water pipe. It broke right at the surface to her cellar, at the income to her cellar. When they dug it up, they found out that the support in the middle of the street, the support to the water pipe was gone. There was nothing supporting that water pipe. Who caused that break? The support was gone. It was the city's fault for not keeping up with this maintenance, yet she still paid the bill. So you knew, and you were in there a few years ago and nothing happened. It's very frustrating for homeowners that have lived here for 30 years to pay taxes and to pay sewer and to pay water. And our issues don't get fixed. Tell me, what do I do?
I would say the first step, bring your address to the city manager.
Okay.
And maybe he can do a little search and discover if we're addressing that area. We're, you know, if you've been watching the council meetings, we're definitely addressing different areas of the city, trying to revamp them and things like that. It's old and it costs a lot of money. I mean, and
I get it, but a few
we're
years ago
trying.
you were in there.
Trust me, if we could go through and redo the whole system, we'd do it in a heartbeat. I think every one of us would say yes.
Are there grants out there for this kind of issue? For
Yeah.
Infrastructure, for upgrading infrastructure? I mean, I know we've got one for the clean water, right? I mean, are we looking at that? I hope.
They're very highly competitive in the state. They're very, this is an issue nationwide in all reality. And, you know, your runoff from, and typically we don't have this dialogue, but your runoff from your home to the street is probably the old ceramic knob tube, you know, the old ceramic slate tubing that came together. You have roots growing into it. And, you know, you might want to touch with DPW. I'm just familiar with it because so many people have dealt with it, myself included. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it all boils right down to grants, and they're highly competitive grants to get because everybody's got their mitts into it. Right. And we've done a good job in getting some. And you know, we're dealing with stormwater, we're dealing with our wastewater treatment plant, we're dealing with a lot. We've got to upgrade our codes. You know, everything that we talked about in here is all strict work in progress for all of us, and it's difficult. But I think you continue to work with the DPW, and they can assist you in alleviating that issue from your home to the street.
Well, I eliminated the issue, cut the tree down. You know, I mean,
you might still have the roots there.
Well, it happens.
And I don't know your issue.
Okay,
I don't want to speculate.
27 years. Okay, so but the issue is the pipe is still broken, and you're still dumping sewer and rainwater into the beautiful Bass Fishing.
Yeah.
You know, that's why we closed the beach. We know that's why we closed the beach. We know that's why we can't open the beach ever again.
Right.
It is a shame. I agree.
Yeah, we gave a large presentation on this whole water system this summer. I mean, it's billions and millions and millions. And like Mike said, every city and municipality in New York State and the country, frankly, the old ones are dealing with this. We're shooting for it, but it's a long time.
All right. Well,
thank you. Anybody else? Okay. I'll try not to have a conversation. As I asked Donna not to earlier.
I just want to say on behalf of the rescue squad, we appreciate your support. Your silence spoke huge. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Anybody remotely would like to address council, please use the raise hand feature and the city clerk will recognize and unmute one person at a time and you will have 2 minutes.
The first individual is registered as Brian Mitchell, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears your line is open, sir.
Good evening. I guess this is just some questions. It's not really even looking for answers, but you're talking about playing a level fair as far as businesses. So I guess my question would be, and I'm thinking of the Moose Lodge, right? We're currently metered already. So if you're going to charge the minimum of a meter rate to anybody without a meter, would a business have the right to take their meter off and then pay the minimum? So that's one question, I guess, to fire out is the reverse side of it. Next question would be, Councilor Scamperly brought up, maybe you look at the hours businesses were open. That might also force a business to close down a day a week or 2 hours less to save the water meter. So I think there's some things on the flip side that if we're going to make it fair, which I 100% agree, what are we doing with the places that are already paying? Do they have the option to also cut the service down? It's just some thoughts. Like I say, not looking for answers, but something to keep in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Anybody else remotely?
The next individual is registered as Greg McNamara, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears you are self-muted, sir. It appears your line is open.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Alrighty, I ran out of time earlier, so I'm going to continue that speech. I did a search on every town, village, what have you in our area, and I would challenge any of you to try to find anywhere within a 100-mile radius of here that's trying to charge people to get body camera footage or for a FOIL request, like I brought to you earlier, because there's nowhere else doing it. That's a major red flag right there. Maybe we could manage the city a little bit better so that we don't have to apply this charge that nowhere else has. Maybe they just know how to manage their money better, and that's why this charge isn't there. We got people asking questions about infrastructure, about this, that. There's been this argument with the water situation. It was already figured out years and years ago, if you guys would go back to Pat, and I found this out. I mean, I'm not old enough to even remember back then, but I was informed by other people. If the whole city was metered, the reason they didn't do it to the residents is because you guys already taxed so high for the water that the city would actually lose money, and that was figured out a long time ago. That's why they didn't go forward with it. I support Mr. Scamperly's idea of the cease and desist of the people you're charging two rates. The city needs to just stop doing it. And what you need to do is figure out, I know you're going to lose some revenue. You need to figure out where that's going to come out of and do the right thing by the citizens. Also, another thing about revenue for the city, because everything you guys have done is tried to generate revenue, like the dump fee, the fee I told you tonight about people trying to get body cam footage, these water fees, etc. Building permits are a revenue service or source, and when a project's done, the project cost is what the cost of the permit is based off of. It's so much per every 1,000. Now, when we have relatives of current city employees and retired city employees putting a roof on a 200-foot wide by 800-foot long building, and they say the owner's installing it, who's almost 90 years old, and there's no cost on the permit, that's a major red flag. And I know the codes people aren't that dumb. So if we let these little corruption, side corruptions for who we know and this and that go away, maybe we'll get some more revenue through that department. Mr. Kronos, and then another one is I called yesterday. I used to talk about that in executive session because I know two different places where there's some real shenanigans going on there. Thanks.
Thank you, Greg. Anybody else?
I do not see any other hands raised.
All right. We do have a need for executive sessions. And I believe we have some resolutions. We'll read the first one. Whereas City Manager Fonda Cronus requests an executive session with members of the Ogdensburg City Council, an executive session to discuss collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of Civil Service Law. And whereas New York State Open Meetings Law permits City Council to adjourn to executive session for such purpose, now therefore be it resolved that City Council adjourn to executive session to discuss collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of Civil Service Law. Be it further resolved that any action resulting from this executive session shall be taken in open session. I so move.
Second.
All right, and call the roll, please.
Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Trim? Approved.
And we have another resolution to adjourn to executive session. Whereas City Manager Fonda Cronus requests an executive session with members of the Ogdensburg City Council, an executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. And whereas New York State Open Meetings Law permits City Council to adjourn to executive session for such purpose, now therefore be it resolved that City Council adjourn to executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Be it further resolved that any action resulting from this executive session shall be taken in open session. I so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sir, I'm sorry, I have to call the roll.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry. Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Trim? Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Approved.
Thank you for stopping.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Like I said, there's a lot of action going on here. It's kind of a little tricky getting used to this because you're trying to take notes and you're thinking and you're this. And I really appreciate Kathy Jock making me a little cheat sheet here.
They're very helpful.
All right, so my final executive session, whereas City Manager Fonda Cronus requests an executive session with members of the Ogdensburg City Council, an executive session to discuss proposed, pending, and current litigation. And whereas New York State Open Meetings Law permits City Council to adjourn to executive session for such purpose, now therefore be it resolved that City Council adjourns to executive session to discuss proposed, pending, or current litigation. I said it wrong before. Be it further resolved that any action resulting from this executive session shall be taken in open session. I so move.
Second.
Can you call the roll, please, Ken?
Counselor Powers?
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Scamperly?
Yes.
Counselor Stevenson?
Yes.
Counselor Trim? Counselor Weaver?
Yes.
Counselor Selly?
Yes.
Approved.
And we do not anticipate any action, so I will make the motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
I
Opposed?
didn't hear a second. Thank you.
The next public meeting.
28th of October. Next council meeting with a host of a couple public hearings and then the second and fourth Mondays of every month are meetings.
And if
Unless
anybody's
it's a
here
holiday.
for school and needs anything signed,
If you're looking
Good
for
idea.
school stuff, there's also a couple budget hearings that probably would count.
Counselors.
Yeah. All right.
Did you say
you wouldn't
adjourn?
want to wait.
I didn't hear adjourn.
Yes, meeting adjourned.
Thank you, sir. Just don't want to